And now on Chatterbox UK, we're just lucky enough, listen to this, we're just lucky enough to have Peter Purves from Blue Peter. Peter, welcome, how are you?
Hello, Peter.
I'm fine,
Wow.
thanks very much, Nick. And hi, Sue, how are you?
I am very well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. So, Peter, it's been obviously that reaction from me. We speak to people every week, but to actually remember you were the guy on Blue Peter when I was a kid growing up in the 70s, before or after Doctor Who, and it goes on. So, but basically, it's like in a Chatterbox UK world, you are the superstar. So there you go. Welcome.
It's very, very flattering, very kind.
Bless you.
I'm very leisurely at this immediate moment. So there we go. But haven't we all been?
Oh, well, yeah. Peter, I understand that you come from Blackpool, and
Yes, that's right.
that's
Yeah.
where the story
No,
starts.
I wasn't born there. I was born in a village called New Longton outside Preston.
I got you.
But my parents moved to Blackpool, and they had a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and we moved in 1942 there. So I was just 3 when we first moved to Blackpool, and I was there until I was 18. Because
Okay.
I stayed at boarding school there.
Got you. Okay. Now, because you were actually rather a TV presenter as opposed to, an actor as opposed to a TV presenter to start with, I believe. So, did that start in local rep, or where did that start?
It was local rep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't go to drama school. I went and auditioned when I was still at school in the summer holidays. I auditioned for my local repertory theatre in Barrow-in-Furness, which was where my parents had moved to. And so in one of my school holidays when I was 17, I went down to, I contacted the theatre and asked if I could audition. And amazingly, they said yes.
Fantastic.
So I went and saw the artistic director there, and they can't have been all that good, the performances, because I'd never done it before, and I really wasn't sure what I was doing. But anyway, I did a Shakespearean piece and a piece from Bernard Shaw, and they said, that's fine, we've got a couple of parts for you in this summer.
Wow.
So when it came to the plays, they cast me in a couple of plays, and they paid me £5 a week for the 2 weeks that I worked on the shows, and that was my very first acting. And it's when I eventually decided I was going to be permanently on stage, as it were, going to be an actor, they contacted me and said, would I like to join the company permanently? And I went back to Barrow from London, where I'd been living for a year, and I went back to Barrow and joined the company, and spent 2 years doing somewhere in the region of 96 plays in 2 years.
In Barrow? Okay.
Yeah, in Barrow-in-Furness, the Renaissance Theatre Company. It was a very nice, small company and a very old theatre. Sadly, I mean, about 3 years after I left in 1963, it was pulled down. It was over 100 years old, but it was just pulled down and became a parking lot for about 5 years. So, great shame. Because it was a lovely place, and I owe my career to the repertory company in Barrow.
No, fantastic. But it obviously, there's some point here. Now, I don't know if are we talking about early 60s, late 50s, something like that, this period of Barrow?
61 till 63.
Okay, well, 63 takes us on to, obviously, the start of Doctor Who, but was there anything in between?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, I mean, I left the rep company in the summer of 63, and my wife and I moved down to London and virtually starved for quite a while. Now I've got a couple of leading parts, but they were in touring productions of plays, and eventually, that Christmas in 1963, I got a job in the singing chorus at the Palladium.
Okay.
And, I did 3 months in that. It was an awful show, actually. It was called Man in the Moon. It starred Charlie Drake.
Oh, okay.
But it was absolutely dreadful. But anyway, I was only in the chorus, so it was no big deal for me. And I did 3 months in that, and then starved for a bit and struggled for a bit, and eventually got a few minor parts in television. The first one was in a series called Z Cars, which you may have heard of.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. And then a few other odd bits. I was in Gideon's Way, I was in Red Cap, I was in Court Martial, I was in The World of Wooster. I mean, all little parts, little cameos for a young actor. And then out of the blue, I got the lead in a television play.
Okay.
In 1964, about November 1964, we shot it. It was directed by Alvin Rakoff, and it was called The Girl in the Picture, and it was about Blackpool, as it happened.
Okay.
And my part, it was a leading part with Nicola Paget, who sadly has very recently died. And for both of us, it was our first leading parts on television. And it was, debut leading performances. We got very good reviews for it. It was a great play. I was playing a beach photographer in Blackpool, which was second nature to me because it was my hometown. We went back there and filmed there, so I mean, it's great.
Wonderful.
And because of that, I did a couple of other things afterwards, but I was pretty broke. Most, your jobs didn't come roaring at you. People weren't sending scripts through the post for me. And I did a leading role in a series that Granada did called The Villains. And I did all sorts of things. I drove trucks. I did all kinds of things. Worked on the laundry. And eventually, I got asked to audition, go and see Richard Martin for a part in Doctor Who. And it was a giant insect or something. Anyway, the night before I went to see him, on the Sunday night, the play that I did in Blackpool, called The Girl in the Picture, was shown on ITV. Main time, 9 o'clock Sunday night on ITV. And it had been shown the previous night. And I walked in for my interview with Richard, and he said, "Peter, I saw you last night. Absolutely terrific. Loved it. Great."
Wow.
So I'm not going to give you one of these parts. There's nothing for you to play. If I'm ever casting anything worthwhile, I'll think of you. Well, I mean, I took that with a pinch of salt. It's the kind of thing that directors do say to actors so that they don't feel too disheartened when they walk out the door. And I was broke, so I really needed the job. Anyway, I didn't get it. And then he was as good as his word, because he cast me in an episode of The Chase.
Okay.
It was probably about 5 months later, I think. And I was playing a character called Morton Dill, who was an American hillbilly on holiday in New York. And we had a 6-minute comedy scene with the Doctor and his companions and the TARDIS, followed by the Daleks, and they had a time machine as well. And I'm the only person, I think, to have insulted Daleks on screen and not been insulted, not been exterminated. Anyway, at the end of the recording of that, I hadn't known, but William Russell and Jackie Hill, who of course were the first Doctor's companions in Doctor Who, they were leaving in 3 weeks' time. I didn't know that, and they hadn't got a replacement. And Bill liked my performance so much in rehearsal that he asked the producer, Verity Lambert, to take a good look at me in the producer's run-through and after the recording. And they did. And they offered me the part of Stephen Taylor in Doctor Who. And 3 weeks after playing this crazy hillbilly, I was playing a totally different character in the 6th episode of the same serial. And I did 46 episodes of Doctor Who.
That's quite something. That in a roundabout way, this is daft, of course, but you could be considered perhaps the first person to have a regeneration in Doctor Who by becoming someone else. I hadn't thought of that.
No one picked up on it at the time.
Wow.
No, there was no people saying, "Oh, that's the same bloke." Obviously, I mean, the characters were totally different. Completely different. I don't know if you've ever seen the 3rd episode of The Chase, but it's a very amusing scene, and I loved playing it. But to play Stephen after that was something else.
I've only seen you as Stephen, I'm afraid.
Idiot to a hero,
And what a hero! I mean, it's 46 episodes, as you say, and I've got to ask this because there was an element of not so much with Troughton, with William Hartnell. There was an element of seriousness. He was nobody could ever have picked a better person to be the first Doctor Who. I don't think.
Oh, well, that's very, very nice of you. I mean, I was cast to be his foil, really, to offer an alternative view, because Stephen was a space pilot, so he had technical ability, and he was obviously very intelligent. So he was able to argue with the Doctor, which gave another dimension to Bill Hartnell's character as well, which was good.
Sure. Now I'm scrolling right down, doing a Wikipedia bit, and never be afraid to put me right because I don't want to.
Don't believe anything you read in Wikipedia. It's got my wife's age down, and it's 9 years older than she is.
But I wasn't going to go down that route. What I was going to do, though, I'm looking at audio dramas, and between 2007 and 2021, it looks like you've been doing. So I don't know if these are audio books or what they are, but it's got you down as playing Stephen Taylor. Even as recently as 2021, is that? Are you still doing it?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I believe that bit.
A wonderful company called Big Finish. Mm-hmm. And Big Finish do audio dramas.
Brilliant.
And they started off doing Doctor Who back in the 1990s. Mm-hmm. And I did my first one for them in 2004, I think.
Okay.
And it was a recreation. It was an original script called Mother Russia, and it involved the Doctor and Vicky and Stephen, and I narrated it and played Stephen, and I also did a sort of hint of an impression of Bill Hartnell's character as well in my reading of it, and they liked that so much that they carried on pursuing that, and I think I've done 36 original dramas for Big Finish, all of them playing Stephen and the Doctor, William Hartnell.
Brilliant.
So
well,
I play the Doctor and Stephen, which is that's a joy.
Well, I think is an absolute feat, Peter, to have basically played that character over a span of what's looking like 58 years here. That is some feat, seriously.
It's not bad, is it?
Brilliant. 1963 to 2021. If you look at it from the time you appeared as in Doctor Who as that character.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Incredible.
I started. Yeah.
Sue's got a question for you, Peter.
56 years.
Peter, you was in Doctor Who back in the 60s, was it, darling?
60s.
Yeah. Now, Doctor Who's out now. Can you... what do you think of the difference from when you was doing it to what they've done now?
I've got my own opinions of it now.
I mean, it's a difficult one for me to say. I mean, I was in it at a time when I think the show. I mean, technically, it wasn't very clever in those days because the limitations were in the technology of the time. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we didn't do great sweeping, magnificent film sequences. They were very short, and they were inserts. We recorded as if it was live. We didn't stop tape, even if a mistake was made. Wow. The only time we stopped was for filmed inserts, and that's all. And to do special effects. So the TARDIS appearing and disappearing was about the magnificent sum of the real technical, clever things that were done at that time. So it's a very different show. But it was led by extremely good scripts. They were intelligent scripts.
Yep.
They worked on all sorts of levels. And I mean, for me, Doctor Who, that was the golden age. Following on, when they regenerated to Bill to Patrick and then to John Pertwee, I mean, all things then became possible. And of course, they then went into colour, and the technology got better, and the ability to shoot on tape rather than on film. And I mean, the whole thing has become so technical. And I don't think it's a patch on what it was.
I agree.
No, absolutely. I mean, I can't even watch it at the moment, I'm afraid. And I'm not even trying to be sexist. It just isn't. You can't change things like that. But I'm not asking you to make comment there, Peter. It's fine. But Peter, 1965, getting into 66 sort of thing. What year was it when you were... I mean, what did you do? Was there anything in between Doctor Who and Blue Peter, or did it just go from one to another?
No, it didn't. No, I had a bad time after I came out of Doctor Who. I couldn't get arrested as an actor, apart from I did. Excuse me. I did a couple of episodes of. No, I did 4 episodes of Z-Cars for directors I'd worked with on Doctor Who, or who had employed me before Doctor Who, in fact. Sure. And I was in had a part in a serial called The Girl in the Black Bikini, which was a thriller. I got murdered in episode 2, but
sorry to hear that.
It was, I mean, little bits. I did Dixon and Doc Green.
Yeah.
But they were small parts, They weren't really. Well, no, there were leading parts in those particular shows, but they weren't. It didn't lead to anything. Mostly, I was out of work. And as I say, I did all sorts of things. I worked for a company called the Drivers Bureau, which you phoned up in the morning and said, "Have you got any work?" And they'd say, "Yes, we want you to go to an airfield in Kent and pick up this car and drive it to the docks in East London." And you'd go there and you find it was a Rolls Royce and being exported, and you drove it up to town and parked it up there and rang them and said, "Right, where now?" And they said, "We'd like you to go and pick up a van from so-and-so. You can take it home, and the following morning I want you to take it to so-and-so, so-and-so." And I was doing that on a jobbing basis. So that was how I drove trucks. I did all sorts of things at that time. So it wasn't easy. And then out of the blue, I was asked to go for an interview. I was told that Blue Peter wanted to see me. And was I interested? Now, as it happens, my agent had just said, "We can't do anything more for you," just at the same time, sent me a letter. And they phoned me the following day and said, "We'd had this inquiry from Blue Peter. I don't know if you know the show. We aren't going to handle it for you. But if you're interested, this is the number." So I rang it, and it was through to Billy Baxter, and I was invited to go along to see them. And I went, and I did 2 interviews at the East Tower Television Centre. Then was sent a script and asked to do a studio audition, which was a 15-minute program. They sent me the script on a Wednesday night. I went into on a Tuesday night. I went into the studio on the Wednesday morning and did the performance, and without auto-cue, because the show didn't use auto-cue, so I had to learn the script overnight. That was no fear for me, because I was good at learning lines from my repertory days. But the rest is history. I got the job.
Fantastic.
However, the reason I got the job, and this is why I said earlier that the theatre in Barrow was responsible for my career. After I'd left, I went back to Barrow-in-Furness when my son was born to see my parents. And I went down to the theatre, and the artistic director had left, and a new artistic director had taken over, called Giles Havergal. And I had a drink with Giles after the show, and he said if I ever wanted to do a play up there, I could, which was very kind of him. Thank you very much. I was in Blue Peter at the time, so it was very flattering and nice. I never took up the offer, but when Blue Peter were looking for a replacement for Christopher Trace, they had spoken to a lady from the National Theatre whose job was to reply to actors who'd sent in requests for an audition or whatever, and send their photographs back and say, "Sorry, no, there's nothing for you." Now, I'd never written to her. I'd never been involved there at all. She was having a dinner party with Edward Barnes, who was the deputy editor of Blue Peter, assistant producer, I think he was at that time. But anyway, deputy editor, he became head of children's programs later. And he was having dinner with her and several others, and he mentioned the fact that he was looking for a replacement, and suggested that this lady may have some names. And she said, "Unfortunately, I haven't. I can't think of anybody who'd be suitable." And a few days later, she was having another dinner party, or was at another dinner party, where Giles Havergal was. And she said, "Oh, Giles, you know everyone in this business. Do you know anyone who'd be any good at going on Blue Peter?" And he said, "I know someone who'd be very good at that." And he put my name forward. So that's how I got it.
Perfect. And you were there for a great number of years. I mean, 67 to 78? Perfect. That is one of the longer innings on Blue Peter, isn't it?
It's the longest, apart from my mate John Noakes.
Bless him, yes.
John Noakes did 12 years, I did 10 and a half.
Well, of course, I remember at the time I was watching Blue Peter, it was you, John, and Valerie Singleton, and then obviously Leslie Judd and you and John. That was the era I was watching it, and what a programme it was, you know. And my mother, who was somewhat...
It was a programme that was right for its time.
It was, you're right.
And, I mean, I think, I won't say it's lost its way now, but it's sort of hidden away in on CBBC or CBeebies, whatever it's called. It's not in the mainstream anymore, but it still has a profile. It's not watched in great numbers when the show goes out, but it is watched online, and kids know how to catch up on it.
Apparently, it
I
gets...
mean, back in your day, you couldn't catch up on it. If you
No,
didn't see it, you
not
missed
at all, not at all. And there were 7 or 8 million of us watching it at the same time.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, I do remember. I mean, John wasn't just the. I mean, looking back, I've looked at some clips on YouTube and that, and John, I was always led to believe was the action man, but you did some pretty nail-biting things yourself. I mean, what is the most exciting Blue Peter moment for you of something you got, you actually got into doing?
Oh gosh, I mean, there are so many, really. I mean, it depends what you term as excitement. I mean, I've been on the helm of the QE2. I've been doing the film on air traffic control. I was up in the jets that were doing the approaching circuits and bumps and all that. And I've had my hands on the joystick of one of those. I mean, those are wonderful things. It's just great. But I think probably the things that were scariest, one was doing a stunt car film where I had to crash the car through the side of a furniture van, which was pretty stupid. I won't go into the details. There was no health and safety, let's put it that way. I didn't get hurt, so I was lucky I survived. But I'm fairly accident prone, so I was quite lucky I didn't get hurt.
Sure.
I enjoyed doing the walk of the cable on the 4th suspension road bridge, which was wonderful. But I equally enjoyed just doing the very basic exploration film on the 4th rail bridge, the iconic rail bridge, which is. I went on that with the bridge manager. Perfect. And we talked about how it was constructed and all the rest of it. I mean, going up to the top of that was pretty impressive as well. And I did all the rock climbing films. So I climbed amazing things with the wonderful Chris Bonington, who led the first successful expedition to the top of Everest after the first time it was climbed. So, I mean, I did a tremendous number of really enjoyable, exciting things, as well as the basic things. I was there as the counterbalance to John Noakes, because John was not great at doing factual pieces. I did all the factual stuff.
Okay.
Johnny did the heroic stuff. I mean, I envied him doing the parachute jumping and stuff like that. But I mean, we used to do military films together. We trained with the Marines. We trained with the signals.
Rising.
All sorts of things. It was a wonderful time. I mean, without doubt, the best job in television. Without doubt.
Well, yes. Look up to you. Yes. Sue's got a question.
Have you got a Blue Peter badge?
Have I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I have a gold one, yes.
Brilliant.
Well deserved as well. Well deserved. What's the funniest moment from the years on Blue Peter?
Well, there's one that stands
I
out
think I
above
know.
all others, and that I'm sure you know what it is. And that was we were going to Sri Lanka. It was then called Ceylon. I don't know if you remember. It was 1969.
No.
Because we were going to Sri Lanka, we thought, well, we're bound to meet some elephants there, so let's have an elephant in the studio and just talk about elephants. So we did. We had a baby elephant in the studio called Lulu. And, well, I mean, the rest is just...
Yeah.
I doubt there are many people who have not seen it.
Well, yes.
It's been shown over and over and over again. It comes out top of all the polls for the funniest television moments of all time on regular occasions. And I mean, John, Val and I were trying to stick to a script whilst the baby elephant basically did what it wanted in the studio. And the reason it did that was the element of control that its handler had was a slightly bulbous-ended stick, which he would gently, and I mean gently, tap the elephant on the forehead, and the elephant would do exactly what he wanted. But it was really gentle. It was just a reminder. The elephant had a chain round its neck.
Yeah.
And he would do this. And Biddy Baxter, in her great wisdom, said to him, Alex, do you think you could not use that stick? Because it looks rather cruel. So he didn't use the stick, and the elephant didn't do anything it wanted. It didn't do anything he wanted. It just did what it wanted, which was lovely. And it was extremely funny. You couldn't have written it.
No.
It's one of those things that just happened.
No, brilliant. And like I say, if I'm allowed to mention, I've heard you comment a few times over the years in interviews that you were asked about Biddy Baxter and you really weren't too keen, were you, I don't believe?
Well, she was a hard lady to work for, but she had an iron fist that controlled that show.
It worked in the day,
the
yeah.
The programme was successful because of her, not in spite.
Sure. No.
She laid down the law. Things were done her way, or they weren't done.
No.
So they got done, and it was her way. There was no argument and no discussion. And where I really fell out with her was that they were very unreasonable about our rates of pay. We were paid very badly. I mean, when I left Blue Peter, I won't tell you how much, but when I left Blue Peter, my salary was quite low. And the next job I got was for the BBC's television department, which I went straight to, which was a show called Stopwatch, it was a sports programme, which I did 5 series of up in Manchester. But immediately, I was paid 3 times as much per programme as I'd been paid for Blue Peter.
Wow.
Immediately. They kept our rates very low. They were very mean.
Sure. Oh.
I mean, they didn't have the budget. I know they did. Those programs didn't have that kind of budget, but they were very bad at those. So it was the best job in television, but the worst paid job.
I understand totally. No, brilliantly. But now, obviously, John Noakes had Shep. Now, am I right in believing that after the shows you took Petra home? Did you have Petra? Is that how it works?
Oh yes, Petra was my dog. I mean, she was owned by the BBC, but she was my dog. I took over her when I joined the programme a few months in. Biddy Baxter has said that the dog isn't very happy in the studio and never has been, but maybe if you took her home and looked after her, she would like to come into the studio with you, and that was true, and that's what happened. So that's how it worked.
And she passed away...
my dog for 8.5 years until she died.
I was going to say, she passed away just before you left, I seem to remember.
About a year before.
Right, got a few more. I'd like to like get you, obviously, to through the Crufts thing. I mean, your love of dogs, no one's got any doubt about that, Peter. So, how long did you do the Crufts thing on BBC?
41 years.
41?
Wow.
Amazing. I knew it had been a long time, so hats off to you for that, Peter. Now, I mean, obviously, you're amazingly kind and come on to shows like this and chat about your career and how interesting it really is. But what are the next sort of moves for Peter Purves? Because you're still quite lively, and I'll tell you what, if I hadn't have seen you, if I hadn't have seen your age, I wouldn't have believed it. You know, you look absolutely wonderful. What's next for Peter Purves? Because you're not one that's going to retire.
The next thing in the pipeline is a series of podcasts that I'm going to do, which are going to be about dogs and going to be about famous people with dogs, essentially. So that's just going to be the hook that we hang it on.
Brilliant.
But that's going to be a sponsored podcast. I've got an association with a company called Limp Bells, who are they do crikey! It's a joint supplement for dogs.
Okay.
It's called U-Move, and I'm the ambassador for that. And so it will be tied in with that. I do a regular tweet once a month or once a fortnight. I'm doing regular tweets, Facebook postings on their behalf about various things to do with dogs. So I mean,
fantastic.
It's not keeping me busy, but it is something that I'm doing. I'm hoping there'll be more Big Finish work. There's no reason why not. The writers that work for Big Finish are always keen to write something for Stephen. They seem to like him. There are several writers that I've done some really extensive work on Big Finish with. One is Simon Guerrier, one is Una McCormack. There are a number. They write wonderful things. It's a very nice medium. I like acting on radio. I think it's good fun. And it has the additional bonus you don't have to learn the lines, but you do need to do your homework beforehand if it's going to be right.
Sure.
I do work very hard to make those as good as I possibly can.
Sure.
So I'm hoping more of that will come along. There's no reason why there won't be, but during the lockdown it's been difficult.
Yeah.
I've done one story since the lockdown where I was in the studio in Suffolk with a video link to the director. And that's all. There was no one else. So we did all my bits, and all the rest were done in other studios with other people remote.
Okay.
So how it hasn't gone out yet, but it will have been quite a difficult editing job to put it all together.
Okay.
But I think it'll be very good. It's a terrific story, so fingers crossed that will be.
Fingers crossed indeed, Peter. Sue's got one last question for you.
Yeah, it's just a question. You said you've got a gold Blue Peter badge. Was there different colour Blue Peter badges?
Oh, where have you been all your life, Sue?
She wasn't allowed to watch it.
When I was in it, there were 3 badges.
Mm-hmm.
There was a plain white background with a blue ship on it, which was the standard one. Then there was a competition. I'm not counting competition badges. Then there was a silver-backed one. Actually, it was a blue one with a silver ship on it. And then there was the gold one, which is the gold not in the triangular shape, not in the shield shape. It's just a ship. It's the Blue Peter ship in gold. It is, of course, not real gold, but there we are. Those are the 3. And the standard one would be given to people who came up with an interesting idea for the programme or just wrote a nice letter to us. Or
that's what I remember.
That badge. They send us a picture or something. If they did something exceptional, they get a silver badge. If they did something really extraordinary, and there are very few, then they would get the gold badge. And that's what it was. Now, there are a great number of badges. I mean, there have been badges for the different anniversaries, because, I mean, the show's been going over 60 years now. 62 years, I mean, it's incredible. It's still going. And there's a green badge, which is for environmental things, the sports badge. There's all sorts of different badges. Kids like collecting badges. I mean, I don't know. I used to be a Cub Scout, and we loved going. You know, you did something, you got a badge for it. So if you learn, you're a rope climber, or you could light a fire, a campfire. Then you got your camping badge and so on. It was you wanted those badges. So kids have always liked that, and they still do. They still like them. It is still. It's not just a cult following. It's still a very successful show.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get the kind of audience that we used to get. It couldn't. Nothing does.
Yeah.
Even EastEnders and places like that, they don't get our kind of audience. We used to get 8.5 million during the winter months, and we used to get 5 million even during the summer months when ideally, kids were out playing.
I think it gets about 250,000 now or something.
To go on a summer filming trip and then have a holiday ourselves, and then we come back and off we go. We did 80 episodes a year.
Wow.
So, I think I did something like 850 episodes of the show.
I don't doubt you for 1 minute. Peter, it's been absolutely amazing. But before you do go, you brought a book out some time ago. Tell us the title of that. And it's an autobiography type book, I believe, yeah?
Sorry, I didn't catch it.
I believe you brought out an autobiography. If you tell us about that, please.
Yeah, it's out of print now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's not been reprinted. It sold about 8,000 copies in hardback. And it was called Here's One I Wrote Earlier, which was...
Brilliant, like it.
Which was the title. I mean, people still keep on finding it. They turn up on eBay and in junk shops and all the rest of it. But, it should have been called a memoir. It wasn't really an autobiography. It was as I remember things. I wrote it straight off the cuff, straight out of my head. I didn't do a great deal of research on it. I just wrote about what I remembered. People seem to have liked it. The press didn't. The Daily Mail hated it. Don't want to do sort of iffy reviews, but the audience for whom I wrote it thought it was great, so that's fine.
And that's what's important. And one very last thing, Peter, websites, Facebook groups, anything you've got, this is your moment. Just throw it all at the listeners now, please. Thank you.
Well, obviously my website is available. It's not up to date, I have to admit. It needs updating by at least a year and a half. I haven't done anything to it since the lockdown, so it's but that's a nice simple one, www.peterpurves.net.
Yeah.
So that's an easy one. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at Purves_Peter.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Perfect, Peter. And
thank you very much, Peter.
It's been an absolute pleasure for us to chat to you, and we'll make sure you get a copy of it when it goes out. And pleasure, Peter. Thank you so much.
Pleasure for me as well. Thanks very much.